last research agenda that I'm working on is perhaps the strangest. I'm actually applying very standard classic economic theory to understand trade in bacteria. So my co-author, his background is in engineering, and he's a systems biologist. He noticed that E. coli bacteria, they have these exporters on their membrane where that cause them to export nutrients from inside the cell to outside of the cell. And this is kind of curious, right? Because why would a bacteria waste perfectly good nutrients? Why would it literally throw out useful nutrients into the environment? And natural selection should weed out wasters like this, right? But it would make sense if those bacteria are trading with each other. So that basically the E. coli, maybe some E. coli, are exporting nutrients to other bacterial community members that then trade resources to them. And so, economics has studied trade since the beginning, since Adam Smith, for several hundred years. And so, this is standard economics. So I thought, wow, can we, this sounds like economics, let's use basic economic theory to understand this problem. And so basically I take the economic theory that I teach in Econ 316, General Consumer Theory and General Equilibrium, which many of the first year PhD students take, and we take the basic core model from that, and we use it to understand how bacteria exchange with each other. Right? The power of economic markets is so sort of basic, so fundamental, that we would expect that nature come up with a solution as well. And that's what it seems like is happening. So let me bookmark that, and let me now talk a little bit about bacteria and why this is important. So understanding bacterial communities and how they operate is really of great importance. You are actually 10 times more bacteria than you are human. You have 10 times more bacteria cells in your body than human cells in your body. That's quite shocking. I find it surprising every time I hear it. It turns out that those bacteria cells are actually much smaller than human cells. So in terms of body mass, you're about 3% bacteria, 97% human. But in terms of just sheer number, mostly bacteria, actually. It's quite shocking. And this affects so many things about our health. It affects our digestion, our immune system, and now researchers are saying it affects our mental functioning. And it affects every aspect of the biosphere outside of our bodies as well. So how these communities interact affects the carbon cycle, it affects agriculture, lots of things, you name it. So understanding how bacterial communities operate is really a fundamental question in biological sciences, and it's one that's been ignored and has now received a lot of attention. There's a lot of researchers who are moving to this. And so my co-author and I think that economics could provide a unique insight in how these bacterial communities function. That basically they've rediscovered, or maybe humans have rediscovered what the bacteria have discovered maybe billions of years ago, that there's magnificent gains from trade. And so basically what I do is I create an economic model of bacterial exchange, and then my co-author, the biologist, goes and we test that model. He goes in, he actually reprograms the bacteria by going into their DNA, and we test we could program the bacteria to trade more or to trade less, and we could test the comparative statics of the economic model. So this is another project that I'm working on, and so all these projects are very different from each other, but I think a common thread that runs through all of them is that there's three parts to these. One, all of these projects have a conceptual part, a theoretical part, where we use economic models to provide insight and understanding about the basic problem at hand. Second, we address these through some empirical tests, an experiment, or study of observational data. to get a sense of what's going on, and then and we use that to test the model. And then what we do is we use this information to solve or to address a large important problem. So for example, with exponential growth bias, it's retirement savings. For information preferences, it's people's take-up of STD tests. And here for biology, it's understanding how these communities work, and hopefully, eventually, maybe this will help us to understand how people's gut bacteria function, and possibly production of biofuels and things like this. So, the idea is that through using economics, we could provide conceptual insight to solve big problems in the world.